Yeah.
Ever catch yourself like looking over your shoulder while you're online? You know what I mean? Like when you're checking your bank account or
Sure.
buying something kind of personal and it hits you. What if someone's watching? Well, that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive into VPNs.
Hmm.
Gotta give you back some control over your privacy online. So think of a VPN that's a virtual private network, by the way. Kind of like a secret agent for your internet, right? Like if
Wow.
you're sending a super secret message, you wouldn't just write it on a postcard, right?
Definitely not.
You want to seal it up in an envelope, maybe one of those fancy ones with the impossible to copy patterns? Well, that's essentially the gist of a VPN. It encrypts your internet traffic, basically turns it into gibberish for anyone trying to snoop around. But you might be thinking, hold on, hasn't online privacy always been, a thing? And the answer is, well, not really, at least not in the way it is now. Things took a turn around 2017. Before then, internet providers had way stricter rules about how they could use your data. But those rules, they loosened up, and all of a sudden, what you're doing online, way more accessible. So yeah, we're really going deep on VPNs in this deep dive. We're talking about why it matters to you. Even if you're not like a tech genius, we'll break down how these things actually work. And maybe most important, who you can actually trust in this whole VPN world, because let me tell you, not all VPNs are created equal. Some are more interested in your data than they are in protecting it, that's for sure. So let's kick things off with the big question, why should you even care about your online privacy in the first place? It's easy to think, hey, I'm not up to anything shady, so who cares if someone sees what I'm doing online? But it's not about hiding something, it's about protecting yourself, your digital footprint. And the reality is your internet provider, your ISP, can see a lot of what you do online.
A lot.
Websites you visit, what you search for, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It's not just about companies knowing what you're up to. There are real-world consequences to this data collection. This isn't just like a theoretical risk or anything. We're talking about your browsing history, the apps you use, even your financial details potentially. This information has value, and it can be used in ways you might not even realize. It's about protecting your privacy at a much deeper level.
That's where this idea of the last mile comes in, right? Think of your internet connection like a highway. You've got the open road where, it's more public, but then there's that last stretch, that last mile from the highway to your house. That's where things can get a little risky, and that's where a VPN comes in. It's like building a secure tunnel for that last mile, shielding your data from anyone trying to peek in as it travels between, say, your phone and the wider internet. It's basically like locking your front door in the digital world.
It's kind of like the difference between, say, using public Wi-Fi, which we all know is a little iffy security-wise, almost like shouting your passwords in a crowded room.
Yeah.
And using your secure network at home. A VPN adds that extra layer of protection no matter where you are, whether you're at home or browsing at the coffee shop, which, let's be real, most of us have done at some point.
Totally. Okay, so that brings us to the million-dollar question. How do you actually choose a VPN? It's almost like picking a bodyguard for your data.
Yeah.
You don't want just anyone. You want someone reliable, trustworthy, someone actually looking out for you.
Absolutely.
And that's where things can get tricky. Because unfortunately, not all VPNs are created equal. Some might even be logging your data themselves, which, that completely defeats the purpose of using a VPN, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's like hiring a bodyguard who's secretly working for the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you really have to do your research. One option we've looked into is Cloudflare's WARP. Now, what's interesting about Cloudflare is that they're not just some VPN company. They're all about internet infrastructure, making the internet fast and secure for millions of websites. It's like, imagine a bakery that also sells bread knives.
Okay, like that.
They'll gladly sell you the knife, but their main focus is on baking the best bread out there, right? Cloudflare's like that bakery. They've got a vested interest in keeping the internet secure, and that includes their VPN. They're not in it just to gather your data and sell it.
Exactly. And their track record really speaks for itself. Cloudflare runs one of the biggest networks in the world, so this isn't some small operation that might vanish overnight. They're invested in a secure, robust internet.
Okay, so Cloudflare sounds like a decent choice for a VPN, but how about actually setting the thing up? Some people might be thinking, this is all great, but I can barely set up my Wi-Fi router. Is using a VPN really something I can handle?
Yeah, that's a common concern. And honestly, it's usually overblown. Take the Datalockit VPN Mini-Router, for example. It comes with WireGuard on WARP already set up.
Okay.
Now, without getting too technical, what that means for you is it's basically plug and play. You connect this little device to your home network, and boom, all the devices on your network are automatically going through the VPN. No need to install anything on each phone, laptop, tablet. It's all taken care of.
So it's like having a security system for your entire house instead of just locking the front door, which, let's be honest, is way more convenient. But speaking of security, one thing that comes to mind is how long these things last. I mean, the internet changes faster than, well, almost everything. What's stopping a VPN provider from just disappearing one day and leaving you with nothing?
That's a really good point. And it's another reason I think Cloudflare has an edge here. Remember we talked about how they're part of the internet's backbone?
Yeah.
They're not just offering some service, they're really integrated into how the internet works.
Yeah.
Think about their public DNS resolver. At 1.1 millions and millions of people use that every single day. Cloudflare is basically part of the internet's foundation.
They're like the plumbing, essential and reliable, and definitely not going anywhere soon.
Exactly. And like you'd expect with a solid foundation, Cloudflare is really committed to constantly improving and staying secure.
They're not just resting on their laurels, which, let's be real, is crucial in the tech world. So with Cloudflare, we're not just talking about a secure connection, but a future-proof one, too.
That's right.
But going back to the user experience for a sec, you mentioned WireGuard, which might sound like a foreign language to some of our listeners. Could you break down what that actually means for someone who's not a tech expert?
Sure. Imagine WireGuard like choosing the fastest, most secure route for your data.
Okay.
It's a VPN protocol known for its speed and simplicity. It's perfect for everyday users who just want things to work without sacrificing security.
Hmm.
And since it's built into that Datalockit router, you don't even have to think about it. It just works in the background.
So it's like you don't need to know how an engine works to drive a car. You just need to know how to use the steering wheel and pedals. It makes it way less intimidating.
Exactly. And speaking of user experience, it's worth mentioning that Cloudflare's WARP app, because yes, they have an app for individual devices too, is designed to be super simple.
Gotcha.
It's clean, intuitive, and easy to navigate, even if you're not a tech whiz.
Like the difference between an old, clunky flip phone and a sleek new smartphone.
Right.
One makes you want to pull your hair out and the other just work.
Precisely. And what I think is really cool is that WARP also has this feature called 1.1.1.1 with WARP, which basically acts as a turbo boost for your internet, even without a full VPN connection. It's like a free speed upgrade just for using their service.
Okay, that's pretty sweet. Kind of like a free appetizer at your favorite restaurant. Unexpected, but definitely appreciated. But let's not get too sidetracked by all the extra features. Let's get back to the core issue here. Why should people care about their online privacy? It's easy to get caught up in the nitty-gritty, right? The encryption, the providers, even the hardware, like that router we were talking about. But let's take a step back for a sec. Why does all this even matter? In a world where, let's face it, so much of our lives, our money, our relationships, our health records live online, shouldn't protecting our digital selves be like just as natural as protecting our physical selves?
You know, it seems obvious when you put it that way. We lock our doors. We don't just like hand out our social security numbers to anyone who asks. So why should it be any different for our online lives, especially with all the tools available to protect ourselves?
It's like that saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? Getting a VPN and taking control of your online privacy isn't being paranoid, it's being smart. It's adding that extra layer of security before something happens, not waiting till after.
Exactly. And it's not about hiding anything either. It's just about having control over your own information, especially in a world where that data is so valuable.
It's about, like, owning your digital footprint, not letting it be up for grabs for anyone to use however they want. And, you know, when you break it down, it's not even that complicated. We take steps to protect our stuff in the real world, our physical selves, so why not our digital lives, too? The tools are out there, and honestly, with services like Cloudflare's WARP, getting started is pretty easy.
It really is. The technology's come a long way. Even in the past few years, you don't have to be some kind of tech genius to use a VPN. It's as easy as finding a provider you trust and following a few simple steps.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into VPNs, the question I want to leave you with is this. In a time where our digital lives and our physical lives are becoming more and more intertwined every day, shouldn't protecting your privacy online be as automatic as buckling your seatbelt when you get in the car? You've got the tools, the knowledge is out there, the choice, as always, is yours.